Carolyn, an elderly woman dressed in her faded housemaid uniform, was sweeping the expansive compound of the luxurious mansion. Her movements were slow but deliberate, her keen eyes catching the shimmer of a sleek black car pulling through the gates. Her boss, Daniel Harvard, stepped out of the car with his usual grace. But Carolyn's attention shifted to the young woman seated in the passenger seat, a striking beauty with perfectly styled hair, sunglasses perched on her head, and an air of entitlement that seemed to announce her arrival before she even spoke. Daniel, always the gentleman, rushed to open the door for her. "Welcome to my home, darling," he said with a proud smile. Melissa stepped out, her designer heels clicking against the pavement, and surveyed the mansion with a critical eye. "You have a nice place here," she said, her tone carrying just a hint of approval, as though she were grading a student's homework. Before Melissa could say more words, Carolyn hurried over to greet them. "Welcome, madam," she chorused, eager to make a good impression. Carolyn, noticing Melissa's small designer luggage, instinctively stretched out her hand. "Let me help with that, Ma." Melissa cut her off mid-sentence, her eyes narrowing. "No, no, no. Don't lay your filthy hands on my bag," she snapped, stepping back as though Carolyn had just tried to grab her purse at a bus station. Carolyn froze, blinking in confusion. She quickly looked down at herself, inspecting her uniform and hands for any visible stain or dirt that could explain Melissa's reaction. I'm sorry, Ma," Carolyn stammered, bowing slightly. "I'll be more careful next time." Melissa wrinkled her nose and waved a manicured hand in dismissal. "Careful," she hissed. "You stink. Do you even wash those hands?" she said with a dramatic shudder, as if the mere idea of Carolyn touching her belongings had contaminated the air. The gateman, who had been watching this exchange with wide eyes, decided to step in. "Let me assist you, madam," he offered, reaching for the bag. Melissa whipped around, glaring at him like he had just insulted her entire family. "I said no," she barked. "None of you can touch my bag. Do you hear me? Not one finger." Daniel, holding back a chuckle, attempted to defuse the situation. "Melissa, they're just trying to help. Carolyn and the team are like family here." Melissa turned to him, her arms crossing as her face twisted into an exaggerated pout. "Family? Daniel, you're too soft. Look at these people, cheap labor in a house like this. You're a billionaire, for a heaven's sake. Can't you afford more sophisticated stuff?" Carolyn, still standing awkwardly to the side, muttered under her breath, "Sophisticated? Does she want me in a ball gown and gloves?" Melissa ignored her. "This isn't working for me," she continued, flipping her hair. "I can't live like this. If you want to keep these people, fine. But I am getting new staff immediately. I can't even wait till after we get married. I'm hiring my own staff. A proper chef, a proper butler, and definitely someone who knows how to wash their hands." Daniel gave a sheepish nod. "I just thought, giving these people an opportunity would be a good thing," he said hesitantly. Melissa rolled her eyes so hard it was a miracle they didn't get stuck. "Opportunity? You're too generous, Daniel. But generosity won't clean this house properly, will it?" Carolyn, trying to suppress a smirk, whispered to the gateman, "I think I'll fail all her inspections, no matter how much soap I use. What should I do now? I don't want to lose my job." The gateman stifled a laugh, and Melissa, sensing she wasn't being taken seriously, hissed loudly and strutted into the house. Daniel followed her, still carrying the bag, while Carolyn and the gateman exchanged knowing looks. Carolyn shook her head, gripping her broom tightly. "Well, if she's this sweet now, I can't wait to see what marriage brings. My boss don't enter one chance, I swear." The gateman chuckled. Let me go polish her mirror. Maybe she see her reflection and calm down. With that, they returned to their duties, bracing themselves for what was sure to be an eventful stay with Melissa. The next morning, Carolyn, dressed in her neat but worn uniform, sat on the couch, hands folded as she waited for Melissa to make her appearance. She had been up since dawn, preparing breakfast with meticulous care, and now all she needed was for Melissa to come out and eat. But minutes stretched into hours, and the cozy comfort of the couch combined with her exhaustion proved too much. Before she knew it, Carolyn's eyelids grew heavy, her eyes closed, and soft snores began escaping her lips. Upstairs, Melissa finally decided to grace the day with her presence. Dressed in a silk robe and slippers that barely made a sound, she descended the staircase, her nose instantly wrinkling at the sight of Carolyn sprawled on the couch, snoring. Her eyes narrowed. Unbelievable. A housemaid, snoring on the furniture, she thought, scandalized. Melissa tiptoed past Carolyn and into the kitchen, her annoyance bubbling into a mischievous idea. Spotting a large bowl, she filled it with cold water, a sly smirk spreading across her face. I'll teach her a lesson, she won't forget, she muttered to herself. Returning to the sitting room, Melissa stood over Carolyn, who was blissfully unaware of the storm about to hit her. With a quick flick of her wrist, Melissa emptied the bowl, drenching Carolyn from head to toe. Ah! Carolyn shrieked, jerking awake as water splashed over her face, soaking her uniform and dripping onto the couch. Her eyes darted around wildly, trying to make sense of the rude awakening. Madam, I swear, I didn't know I slept off, she sputtered, sitting upright and blinking away the water streaming down her face. Please forgive me. It won't happen again. Melissa crossed her arms, her lips curling into a look of exaggerated disgust. Forgive you? You've soaked the couch with your maid sweat. This is not a bus stop. Get up and clean that mess, now. Carolyn scrambled to her feet, grabbing the edge of her apron to dab at the couch. Melissa raised an eyebrow, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Oh, yes, because a dirty apron will surely fix everything. Stop that, go get a towel, and I want this chair dry in 30 minutes. No excuses. Yes, Ma, Carolyn stammered, bowing slightly before her hurrying off to find a towel. Melissa let out a dramatic sigh, flopping into an armchair with the air of someone who had just fought a war. What bush did Daniel drag you out of? She muttered loudly enough for Carolyn to hear. I can't believe I have to share a house with someone so unrefined. Carolyn paused in her rush to the laundry room, turning slightly to face Melissa. I'll improve, Ma, she said meekly, her wet uniform clinging to her. Melissa waved a dismissive hand. Improve. Honey, improvement isn't enough. You need a miracle. You can't stay here with me. Never, mark my words. Carolyn bit her lip, suppressing the urge to say something cheeky. Instead, she bowed her head and whispered, Yes, Ma, I'll do better. As she turned the corner, muttering under her breath about sophisticated madams and their drama, Melissa reclined on the now dry armchair and called out, Oh, and make me fresh juice when you're done. I only drink mango strawberry blends, nothing else. Carolyn sighed, shaking her head as she walked away. If this is her calm morning self, I can't wait to see her bad days. Carolyn shuffled into the living room, a tray in hand, balancing a tall glass of mango strawberry juice she'd prepared with the precision of a chef in a five-star kitchen. She set it gently on the coffee table in front of Melissa, who was lounging in a silk robe, scrolling through her phone like a bored queen awaiting entertainment. Madam, your juice, Carolyn said with a polite bow. And the breakfast is set on the dining table. Melissa glanced at the juice, then at Carolyn, her lips curling into a smug smile. Taking a slow sip, she placed the glass back on the table and said, "I don't think you can make a good cup of tea, let alone a decent meal." Carolyn blinked, momentarily stunned. Melissa waved her hand dismissively. "Don't worry about my breakfast or lunch. I'll eat out when I feel like it. Honestly, I'd rather not risk whatever you've cooked." Carolyn's face fell, but she quickly composed herself. "Madam," she said with a nervous smile, "please, just try the tea. I'm good at making tea. In fact, my boss prefers homemade tea, all because I make it better than anywhere else." Melissa's eyebrows shot up, and then she burst into laughter, clutching her stomach as if Carolyn had just told the joke of the century. "For real, homemade tea. That's what you're proud of?" Carolyn nodded earnestly. "Yes, Ma, it's my specialty. Everyone says it's the best." Melissa leaned back, still laughing. "Oh, wow, I can't believe this. I imagine where Daniel found you. A bus stop, a village fair." Carolyn's cheeks reddened slightly, but she held her ground. Melissa smirked, narrowing her eyes. "You're lucky to even be here, but don't get too comfortable. Start your countdown because, let me tell you, your days in this house are numbered." Carolyn took a deep breath, choosing to ignore the thinly veiled threats. Instead, she straightened her posture and said calmly, "Madam, do you want to have your breakfast here or at the dining table?" Melissa rolled her eyes so hard it looked like she was scanning the ceiling for cobwebs. Then, with a loud, dramatic hiss, she waved Carolyn away. "Get out of here. I need my peace." Carolyn bowed slightly. "Yes, Ma." She turned to leave, but couldn't resist muttering under her breath. With all this hissing, she could join a snake charmer's act. Melissa caught the whisper and shot up. "What did you just say?" Carolyn froze mid-step, her back still turned. "Oh, nothing, madam. I said I'll charm the tea next time." Melissa flopped back onto the couch with an exaggerated sigh, muttering, "I don't know what's worse, the tea or the maid." As Carolyn disappeared into the kitchen, she smiled to herself. "Days numbered. We'll see whose numbers run out first." A few hours later, Daniel's name popped up on Melissa's phone screen. She smirked, quickly picking up. "Hey, love," she cooed. "I was just about to call you." Daniel's voice came through, warm and curious. "Hi, darling. Just wanted to check on you. How's everything going?" Melissa huffed dramatically, her annoyance bubbling to the surface. "Honestly, Daniel, this house help of yours is making this place stuffy. I can barely breathe with her presence choking me." Daniel paused, sensing a storm coming. What happened this time?" Melissa wasted no time diving in. "Can you imagine? She served me tea this morning with 2 cubes of Maggi in it." There was a long silence on the other end, followed by a loud cough. "Maggi, in tea? Are you serious?" "Yes, love, 2 big cubes." I was so shocked I couldn't even take a sip. Melissa lied with the flair of a seasoned actress. "I've tried, Daniel, but I can't deal with her anymore. I think it's high time I brought in my own staff, people who actually know what they're doing." Daniel let out a slow breath. "Maggi in tea. Wow, that's a new one." He paused, sounding reluctant. "Well, okay, if that's what'll make you comfortable. Carolyn's been a wonderful cook for years, but maybe she just doesn't meet your taste." Melissa's lips curled into a triumphant smile. "Thank you, love. I'll take care of it." As soon as she hung up, she turned and shouted, "Carolyn." Her voice rang through the mansion or a trumpet. Carolyn emerged from the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. "Yes, madam." Melissa glared at her. "Get a room ready. My staff are coming over today. I need people who know how to serve tea without turning it into a soup." Carolyn tilted her head, frowning slightly. Madam, I didn't put magic cubes in your tea. In fact, she added, her voice calm but firm, you didn't even drink the tea. Melissa's jaw dropped, her eyes narrowing. What? Are you listening to my conversations now? Carolyn blinked, confused. No, Ma. When you were talking, I was cleaning the dining room, and I didn't have your earpiece on to deafening myself. How dare you? Melissa snapped, stomping her foot. I don't need your excuses. Just admit you're incompetent and move on. Carolyn raised her hands defensively. I'm not incompetent, madam. I've served tea to hundreds of people in this house. No magic complaints until now. Melissa hissed. Well, congratulations. You finally made history. Now, stop wasting my time and go prepare the room before my staff arrive. Carolyn bit her lip, trying not to laugh. Yes, madam, she said, bowing slightly and heading back to the kitchen. Daniel was deep in the peaceful embrace of sleep, his soft snores punctuating the stillness of the room. The day had been long, and he was finally enjoying the rest he'd been craving, until a sharp jab to his ribs jolted him awake. Daniel, Melissa's voice pierced the silence, urgent and insistent. Daniel groaned, rubbing his eyes as he blinked into the dimly lit room. Melissa, he mumbled, his voice groggy. What is it? What happened? Melissa sat up, arms folded, her silk robe glistening in the faint moonlight. Her lips were pursed in frustration. It's been 5 days since you brought me here, she began, her tone accusatory. Why haven't you touched me? Daniel froze, his half-asleep brain scrambling to process her words. Touched you, he repeated, still trying to fully wake up. Yes, touched me, Melissa snapped, her voice climbing an octave. Am I not attractive enough? Or, she leaned closer, narrowing her eyes. Is your manhood having issues that woke him up? Daniel's eyes widened, and he sat up slightly, running a hand through his hair. Melissa, it's the middle of the night, he said, stifling a yawn. Can we talk about this in the morning, please? I'm exhausted. Oh no, Melissa shot back, shaking her head dramatically. It's either you answer me now, or what? Daniel asked, a small smile playing on his lips despite his tiredness. Melissa crossed her arms and raised her chin defiantly. Or I'll assume the worst. Daniel sighed, realizing there was no escape from this conversation. He leaned against the headboard, a wry smile on his face. You know how much I love you, he began, his tone gentle. Melissa raised an eyebrow. Do you? Because love is looking pretty questionable right now. I do, Daniel said firmly. But my mom advised me not to touch you until we're married. And honestly, I think it's a good idea. Melissa blinked, caught off guard. What, your mom? Yes, Daniel continued, his voice calm and measured. She said it would keep your dignity intact and show how much I respect you. Melissa's jaw dropped. Who does that? She exclaimed, throwing her hands in the air. We're not in the 18th century, Daniel. How can you bring me here and then act like a monk? Daniel couldn't help but chuckle at her dramatic outburst. Melissa, my darling, he said, reaching for her hand. In just a few weeks, the waiting will be over, and I'll be yours forever. Melissa pulled her hand away, clearly unimpressed. Weeks, Daniel, I'm a modern woman. I didn't sign up for some wait until marriage nonsense. This is torture. Daniel shook his head, smiling as he lay back down. It's not torture. It's discipline. Besides, think of the anticipation. It'll make everything even more special. Melissa scoffed, throwing herself back onto her side of the bed. Anticipation. I'll tell you what's special. Getting some sleep without hearing your mom's voice in our relationship. Daniel chuckled softly, closing his eyes. Good night, Melissa. Melissa muttered under her breath, glaring at the ceiling. "Your mom? That won't work at all, I swear." The next day, the dining table was a masterpiece of culinary art. Aromatic dishes were arranged with precision, each plate looking like something straight out of a gourmet magazine. Standing proudly beside the table was the new chef, a tall, impeccably dressed man with a charming smile that could light up a room. "Dinner is served," he announced politely, his tone smooth as butter. "Please, Mr. Daniel and Madam Melissa, come and enjoy." In the sitting room, Daniel and Melissa were lounging on the couch, their attention half on the TV. Daniel glanced at the chef and offered a polite nod. "Thanks so much." "We'll be right there," Melissa smiled and said. "Let me change into something beautiful, love. We'll be right back." Soon, Melissa returned, her silk gown swishing as she moved. She took Daniel's arm, practically dragging him to the table. As they settled into their chairs, the aroma of the food wafted over, and even Daniel couldn't hide his curiosity. Melissa leaned in, a sly smile playing on her lips. "So, how do you feel about our new chef?" she asked, her voice tinged with pride. "I think he's perfect. Doesn't he meet your standard?" Melissa beamed. "I told you. Finally, someone sophisticated in this house. I mean, no offense too." She trailed off, waving a hand as if to dismiss the entire existence of Carolyn. Just then, as if summoned by the mention of her name, Carolyn appeared in the dining area. She shuffled over to Daniel with a slightly bent posture, her trusty cleaning rag tucked into her apron. "Excuse me, boss," she whispered, leaning toward Daniel. "I just wanted to ask if—" Melissa slammed her fork onto the table with a loud clang. "What is this?" she snapped, her eyes narrowing at Carolyn like a hawk spotting its prey. Carolyn froze, confused. "Madam, I don't like seeing you when I'm eating," Melissa hissed, her tone dripping with disgust. You look, she shuddered dramatically. "Disgusting." Daniel's fork paused mid-air as his eyes darted between the two women. Carolyn, visibly offended, but trying to stay composed, straightened her posture. "Madam, I'm sorry," she said, her voice calm. "I didn't realize my face could affect your digestion." Melissa gasped, pointing a dramatic finger. "See, this is exactly why I don't want her around. She's rude." Carolyn raised her hands, mock innocence plastered on her face. Madam, I'm not rude. I'm just stating facts. If my presence alone has this much power, maybe I should charge rent for living in your head." Daniel let out a sudden laugh, but quickly covered it with a cough, pretending to focus on his food. Melissa turned to Daniel, flabbergasted. "You're laughing. Are you seriously laughing right now?" "I'm not laughing," Daniel said, though his shoulders were shaking with suppressed laughter. Carolyn, sensing she had the upper hand, gave a small curtsy. "Madam, I'll leave now so you can enjoy your meal in peace. But please let me know if I need to fix my face before entering the dining room next time." Melissa glared at her retreating back. "Unbelievable," she muttered, stabbing her salad with unnecessary force. "This is why I said we need to replace her. She's unbearable." Daniel shook his head, hiding a smirk. "You said you wanted sophisticated stuff. Carolyn's just showing you she can match your energy." Melissa glared at him. "Don't start, Daniel." Daniel chuckled quietly, taking another bite of his food. Meanwhile, in the kitchen, Carolyn hummed to herself, victorious. The moment Daniel's car disappeared through the gates, Melissa, still lounging in her silk robe, called out, "Carolyn, get in here." Carolyn emerged from the kitchen, a soapy sponge in one hand and a weary look on her face. "Yes, madam," she asked, drying her hands on her apron. Melissa waved a piece of paper in the air like it was a royal decree. "Here's a list of things I need you to buy from the market. And don't waste time, I need them all before dinner." Carolyn took the paper hesitantly, scanning the list with wide eyes. The items were endless: exotic spices, imported fruits, a specific brand of water only found in one corner of the city, and was that a handwritten note at the bottom about Melissa's favorite shade of nail polish. "Madam," Caroline began cautiously, "you've been the one shopping by yourself all this time. Why are you sending me today? I still have clothes to wash." Melissa's perfectly plucked brows shot up. "Are you seriously questioning me right now?" she snapped, standing up so dramatically that her robe flared behind her like a cape. "You'll go to the market today, and the washing can wait till tomorrow." "No way," Caroline frowned, holding up the list. "But madam, my mind doesn't feel like leaving the house today. Maybe we should just manage what we have at home. I can go early tomorrow instead." Melissa's jaw dropped. "Excuse me," she hissed, her eyes narrowing into dangerous slits. "Would you shut up and get out of this house?" Caroline, undeterred, stared at the paper again. "Madam, I would need to go to 2 different markets to get all these things. It's not like everything is in one place, you know. Let me at least inform the driver to get ready." Melissa cut her off, her voice ringing through the room. "Don't you dare think the driver is taking you. You're going alone." Caroline's eyes widened in disbelief. "Madam, these bags will be heavy. I'll need to carry tomatoes, yams, fruits, and all this other stuff by myself. It'll take me the whole day." Melissa crossed her arms and smirked. "Then start now, Caroline. The sooner you leave, the sooner you'll be back." Caroline tilted her head, squinting at Melissa. "But madam, who will open the gate for me when I return? My hands will be too tired to knock after carrying all this." Melissa waved dismissively. "That's your problem. You can figure it out. Maybe you can use your mind to open the gate since it didn't want to leave the house earlier." Caroline muttered something under her breath as she folded the list and tucked it into her pocket. "Madam, this your sense of humor? It's too advanced for me." Melissa raised a brow. "Did you just call me funny?" "No, madam," Caroline said quickly, backing away toward the door. "I said you're funny fitting." "Good. Now go before I change my mind and send you to 3 markets instead," Melissa retorted, sitting back on the couch with a satisfied smile. Caroline trudged out of the house, muttering to herself, "Madam said no driver. I'll use my legs, carry bags, and then still open the gate with my mind. God, if this is a test, please reduce the subject matter." Caroline was trudging along the road to the market, fanning herself with the shopping list. Her phone buzzed loudly, breaking her thoughts. She quickly fished it out, squinting at the screen. It was Daniel. "Hello, sir," she answered breathlessly. "Caroline, where are you? It's so noisy in the background." Daniel's tone was sharp, making Caroline straighten up. "I'm on my way to the market, sir. Madam sent me on an errand," she replied, rolling her eyes slightly. "Turn around and get back home immediately," Daniel instructed urgently. "There's a document in the white file in the utility room. I need you to snap the code on it and send it to me. It's urgent, and Melissa won't be able to handle it. She may not know where it is." She turned around, muttering to herself, "This Daniel Seth. Madam sends me out. Boss calls me back. It's like I'm playing table tennis today." When she got home, the gateman was leaning against the gate, laughing loudly with another gateman from the neighborhood. They were so engrossed in their gist that they didn't even notice her. Caroline, in no mood for pleasantries, breezed past them like a whirlwind without a single greeting. Inside, she found the white file, snapped the code, and sent it to Daniel. Task complete. She wiped her hands on her apron, muttering, "Now maybe I can get back to." But as she passed the master bedroom, something stopped her dead in her tracks. The door was slightly ajar, and she could hear voices. Her brows furrowed. "Who is with Madam?" Curiosity tugged at her like a stubborn child. She tiptoed closer and peeked through the gap. What she saw made her jaw drop. Inside, Andrew, the dashing new chef, was seated on the couch, while Melissa had her head comfortably resting on his lap. Carolyn's mouth formed a perfect O as she strained to hear their conversation. Andrew's voice was stern. "Melissa, what's going on with the wedding plans? I thought you said this Daniel guy was desperate to settle down. It's been 2 weeks since you moved in, and you two haven't even picked a date. What's the hold-up?" Melissa sighed dramatically, flipping her hair. "I was already here before I realized I'd on enter one chance. Imagine Daniel saying we can't finalize the wedding until his mother returns. His mother. Do I look like I have time to be waiting for one old woman I haven't even seen?" Andrew scoffed. "This is nonsense. You know I can't stay like this for long. I miss you, baby. You know I can't do without you." Melissa reached up to caress his face. "I miss you too, my love. Daniel is boring me to death. The only good thing here is the Wi-Fi." Andrew's tone darkened. "By the way, your friend Margaret called me. She said you owe her money and haven't paid for those clothes you bought on credit. She's threatening to expose everything, your plans, your past, everything, to Daniel and on social media, if you don't pay her by the weekend." Melissa shot up, her eyes wide. "What? That girl better not try me. After all, I promised her a cut of Daniel's wealth once I secure it. Can't she wait until I do the court wedding? After that, I'll divorce him and get 50% of everything. She get her share then." Carolyn's eyes nearly popped out of her head. Her heart pounded as the gravity of Melissa's plan sank in. Court wedding, divorce, 50%. She tiptoed away from the door, muttering under her breath, "This one not professional scammer, oh, God. How did I land in this movie?" Anyway, she doesn't know Carolyn is watching. As she slipped out of the compound, the gateman called after her, "Auntie Carolyn, where are you rushing to?" She turned to him with a forced smile. "Oh, I'm just going to fetch fresh air. This house is too suffocating." 3 days later, Daniel was all dressed for work, adjusting his tie in the mirror, when Melissa suddenly appeared behind the bedroom door like a villain in a suspense movie. Arms crossed, her expression was a mix of fury and determination. "You're not going anywhere until you give me the money I ask for," she declared, blocking the door like a human roadblock. Daniel sighed, his patience already stretched thin. "Melissa, you know how generous I am. I've explained this to you. My account is having issues, remember? You were literally there when I was on the phone with the bank officer yesterday. This issue has affected a lot of financial activities at the office, too." Melissa's eyes narrowed. "So you mean to tell me you can get just 1 million naira from anywhere, even without going to the bank? Daniel, are you really this broke?" Daniel shook his head and exhaled deeply. "You know I don't deal in cash. The government's cashless policy is serious, and I don't keep that kind of money lying around. Just be patient, my love. I'll make it up to you soon." But patience wasn't in Melissa's dictionary. Her eyes widened dramatically, and she stomped her foot like a spoiled princess in a poorly written soap opera. "I said no way. I've already placed the order for my shoe, and I cannot cancel it. Do you know how perfect it is for our wedding colors? It's customized. If I miss this chance, I may never find it again." Daniel stared at her, his tone now calm but firm. "Melissa, why are you shopping for a wedding when we haven't even fixed a date? My mom doesn't want us to stress over anything. She already said she'd hire a wedding planner and a team to handle all the purchases. We don't need to do all this." Behind the closed door, Carolyn was listening to every word, leaning so closely that her ear was practically glued to the wood. A sly smile spread across her face as she muttered under her breath, how I go take tell boss say, he no suppose give this woman one cobo. This sophisticated madam na real scammo. Caroline shook her head in disbelief, continuing her internal monologue. Men of nowadays Zeph. Dem go see better wife for ground God-fearing. Natural beauty, simple, but dem no go look at him twice. Instead, not the one with fake hair, fake nails, fake eyelashes, fake butt, and fake everything dem go choose. Later dem go day cry. Women are wicked. I day pity this my boss. As she lost herself in thought, the door swung open suddenly. Daniel stood there, staring at her with raised eyebrows. Caroline, what are you doing here? Caroline froze, eyes darting nervously like a child caught stealing candy. Before she could stammer out a response, Melissa barged in with her usual sharp tongue. I told you, Daniel, I can't stay in this house with this thing you call a maid, or whatever charity project you're running here. She's disgusting. Daniel pinched the bridge of his nose, clearly drained. Melissa, not now. Caroline, get back to your duties. Caroline quickly nodded, biting back the sarcastic retort bubbling on her lips. Yes, sir. She scurried away, but as soon as she turned the corner, she whispered to herself, this madam no say her own don finish. I go expose her scam life one day. Not small, Daniel sighed and calmly said. See you later, he said, trying to escape the chaos. Melissa wasn't done, though. She called after him, her tone syrupy sweet, but loaded with expectations. Don't forget your promise, so. I'll be expecting to see the alert. Daniel waved her off without turning back. Caroline, watching from a safe distance, chuckled to herself and muttered, Oga no say will alert day come, but he no go be the one way madam day expect.